Welcome to this deep dive. We're taking a look at It's Okay Not to Share.
Hmm. This parenting book is pretty interesting. It has an unconventional take on raising 2 to 6-year-olds.
For sure, we'll be going through controversial topics like conflict resolution.
Oh, and even sex education.
This deep dive is going to be uncovering the book's renegade rules. We'll look at how these rules can affect child development.
The book really makes you think differently about common beliefs on how kids learn and interact. It looks at whether the traditional ways of doing things actually benefit a child.
Or if they get in the way.
Exactly.
It's interesting how much the author really focuses on the importance of play.
Unstructured playtime for this age group.
With support from research by the American Academy of Pediatrics and child development experts.
A lot of experts these days are worried about replacing play with academics.
Too early.
Way too early. They're seeing this even in preschools now.
The book mentions a mom who was worried because her kid's preschool bag didn't have worksheets in it. And she was concerned that her child wasn't getting enough writing practice.
Not ready for kindergarten.
But the book argues that pushing academics that early can actually hurt their development.
Interesting.
The author believes that free play is essential for kids to develop really important skills.
Like social emotional intelligence, problem solving, and creativity.
All vital for healthy development.
Could even lead to academic success in the future.
Now, this doesn't mean we just let the kids run wild.
Not at all.
The book clarifies that while supporting free play, boundaries are very important.
It actually encourages redirecting play instead of just banning it.
Like if a child was hitting others with sticks,
Don't take the sticks away.
but instead redirect them to a safer place where stick play is okay.
Showing them those boundaries while they explore and try new things.
This reminded me of Haim Janot's approach of informational rebukes,
Mm-hmm.
clarifying the purpose of something.
Like chairs are for sitting, not for standing.
Instead of don't stand on the chair.
Helps kids understand the reason behind limits.
The book also gives an example of a child throwing sand and gives a 4-step method for setting limits.
Okay.
Reinforce the rule, describe and stop the action, request a change in behavior, follow through with a consequence if needed.
So these steps give parents structure when a child does something wrong. But it considers their feelings and helps teach appropriate behavior.
Without yelling or just punishing them.
I like that.
Then the book talks about conflict resolution.
Not just breaking up fights.
They believe in teaching kids as young as 2 how to resolve issues on their own.
Wow.
Yeah, it might sound surprising, but conflict is a normal part of life.
So the earlier kids learn how to handle it, the better.
The book says direct communication of feelings is the first step.
Right.
There's an example where 2 kids are arguing about throwing toys in their blanket fort, and they actually negotiate and find a solution on their own.
This allows children to realize they can work through those differences themselves.
And they build confidence and resilience.
Very good point.
The book stresses how important it is for parents to stay neutral when mediating those conflicts,
Especially emotionally.
not taking sides.
It can be hard when it's your own kid involved.
Absolutely.
That's so important.
There's a story about a mom mediating a conflict between her son and another boy at a toddler gym.
Hmm.
And the other mom had a negative reaction to that approach.
Showing that it's not always going to be easy.
And you might get pushback from people who believe in a different way.
Interesting.
The book then gets into handling big emotions in kids,
Lots of those.
urging parents to acknowledge and accept those feelings instead of dismissing them.
Or suppressing them.
Right. Because emotions are a huge part of a child's growth
And stifling that can hurt them.
in the long run.
Yeah.
The author criticizes how society focuses so much on positive emotions,
Okay.
using the example of if you're happy and you know it,
That gives kids the wrong idea about happiness.
that they should be happy all the time. Repressed emotions, she says, can create problems later. Recognizing and naming those feelings helps build important neural pathways for learning.
That makes sense.
It's okay not to share, has this unique idea for dealing with intense emotions,
What's that?
writing them down in a letter format.
Mhm.
The author used this technique with your son. He was upset because he couldn't paint.
Oh.
Simply writing down his feelings helped him calm down
Like he felt heard.
and understood. This technique also shows children the power of writing to communicate.
It does.
There's a story about a child named Jackson who had trouble with hitting. He worked with his teacher, and they wrote down a strategy for him to manage his anger, showing how writing can help kids control their behavior.
The physical act of writing seems to make it more real for them.
More accountable.
Uh,
Now let's discuss a concept that really makes this book stand out.
Okay.
It's okay not to force sharing,
Hmm. That might be a surprise to a lot of parents.
because sharing is seen as such a vital social skill.
It is.
But forcing young children to share could be harmful,
Okay.
and it could actually delay genuine generosity.
The book argues that young kids aren't developmentally ready for true sharing, but they can understand taking turns.
Right. The book makes a distinction between the right to property and the right to play.
Hmm.
Like if someone wanted to borrow your car,
Yeah.
you wouldn't just give them your keys without an agreement.
Right.
And kids feel the same way about their toys.
Especially when they're in the middle of playing with them.
There's a story about Brandon and Miles. They were playing with necklaces,
Okay.
and Miles wanted the one Brandon had.
Uh-huh.
But his mom, instead of forcing Brandon to share, she gave Miles more necklaces.
So clever.
And that quickly resolved the situation.
I see.
The book also says that taking turns has other benefits besides just avoiding conflict.
Such as?
It empowers kids, encourages courtesy and awareness,
And could eventually encourage genuine generosity.
which feels more authentic.
Which thought forced sharing.
Absolutely. It's okay not to share. Also challenges another common belief,
What's that?
that children shouldn't hog a toy for a long time.
That's one that parents probably struggle with a lot.
But the book suggests allowing extended playtime with one toy can actually be beneficial for a child's development.
Interesting.
There's examples like Miles swinging for hours or Tom spending the whole day at the water table.
Wow.
The book stresses respecting a child's immersion in their play.
Not interrupting or redirecting them just because we think they should be doing something else?
The book suggests that these long turns happen because of a need for repetition, sensory exploration,
Or practicing new skills.
all super important parts of development.
Interrupting those can disrupt their learning.
But of course, sometimes there are time constraints.
And we have to end the play.
The book offers strategies for those situations,
Like,
acknowledging the child's wish to keep playing and maybe figuring out how to extend the play later.
finding solutions that respect the child's needs.
Okay, get ready for another unique idea from the book,
I'm ready.
making space for hitting and kicking.
Really?
This is one of the most drastic ideas.
I can see that.
But the book says that giving children safe ways to express anger physically, as long as it's not towards another person, can be helpful.
I see.
The author suggests that holding those urges in can actually make things worse later. It's better to give them other targets for those feelings.
Like
Pillows, punching bags, cardboard boxes.
waving clay.
And physical activity helps relieve tension.
Right.
This isn't about condoning violence, but helping kids cope with strong feelings.
Like anger.
The book tells the story of a boy named Jack.
Uh,
He learned to manage his anger by running around a tree.
wow.
That simple physical activity helped him calm down.
That's a good illustration of how every child is different and we need to give them different options.
Now let's move on to something that's sure to cause debate.
Uh-oh.
No girls, signs and gender bending play. This section really tackles head-on those societal expectations around gender roles
Okay.
and challenges the traditional ideas about what boys and girls should be playing,
It goes against what we usually do.
which is discourage gender segregation.
Or activities that don't fit with their gender.
The book's point of view is that signs like no girls or no boys, while they might seem like the child is excluding others,
Right.
are not necessarily a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
They often stem from the child's exploration of gender identity, play preferences, or maybe even their fears.
Interesting take.
It's okay not to share is a strong advocate for allowing boys to show emotions that are typically labeled as girly
Okay.
and to participate in those activities that are usually seen as feminine.
This goes against those societal pressures,
That can make boys feel like they can't be sad or scared.
leading them to act out with anger or aggression.
The author argues that by embracing this wider range of emotional expression, boys can develop better.
And become more well-rounded people.
Let's discuss another often taboo topic.
Go on.
Swearing. The book's advice might surprise you.
I'm listening.
Instead of banning it, the author suggests acceptance and redirection.
Really?
They believe that if you react calmly and give kids other places where they can swear, it takes away the power from the words.
And lessens that excitement of breaking the rules.
The book also talks about different types of bad words.
Like,
Swear words, potty talk, mean words.
Oh,
Giving different strategies for each one.
recognizing that not all those words are bad in every situation.
The overall message is that kids need to be able to express themselves,
Right.
but they also have to learn to be respectful of others' feelings.
And understand that their words have power.
The book also tackles lying,
Tough one.
encouraging parents to see it as something more than just being bad.
Okay.
They want us to dig deeper and understand the reason why the child is lying. The book suggests that young children lie to express their wishes, or to get out of trouble, or to make adults happy.
Trying to control their little world through language?
So instead of punishing them, they suggest we acknowledge their effort
Okay.
and give them other ways to get what they want.
And really focus on building trust.
That makes them feel safe to admit when they've done something wrong.
So they can actually learn from it.
Now, for our last topic,
Let's hear it.
this is one that a lot of parents are uncomfortable with.
I bet.
Sex education for preschoolers.
Wow.
It's okay not to share is a big believer in starting those conversations early.
Really?
They believe in open and honest conversations about sex and body parts.
With preschoolers?
Yes. And they want parents to teach kids that there's nothing to be ashamed of,
That goes against what many parents do.
which is avoid those conversations because it makes them uncomfortable.
For sure.
Starting early, the book says, helps kids feel comfortable coming to their parents with questions.
Even later in life.
The book highlights the importance of clarifying a child's questions
Right.
and using language they can understand
At their age.
and being honest with them.
So those are the core ideas from It's Okay Not to Share. What stands out to you most about these renegade rules?
It's interesting how it challenges so many of the things we believe about parenting.
Absolutely. It really makes you think. We'd love to know what you think about this deep dive.
Later in the episode, we'll go over a quick summary of the 10 key takeaways.
We hope this will be helpful for you.
The first point is to prioritize free play. It's so important for development, helping them be creative, problem solve, and learn social emotional intelligence.
The second point is set limits. Don't ban. If play becomes a problem or dangerous, redirect it instead of forbidding it entirely.
Give them room to explore safely. Third, teach conflict resolution. Give your kids the ability to work through disagreements in a healthy way.
This helps them learn how to communicate and solve problems from a young age. The fourth point is to accept their big emotions. All those feelings, even the hard ones, are important.
Help them find healthy ways to express and manage those emotions. The fifth one is write down those feelings. When a child is upset, taking dictation from them can help them feel validated.
It builds trust and shows them that writing can help them express themselves. Sixth is turn-taking over sharing. Forcing kids to share can backfire. Encourage turn-taking to give them a sense of control and fairness.
Seventh is, it's okay to let kids have long turns with one toy. It's important to respect their deep engagement in an activity, even if they're focused on just one thing for a long time.
If you need to end the play, acknowledge that they want to keep going and see if there's a way to let them continue later. The eighth takeaway is give them safe ways to express anger.
Like providing alternative things to hit and kick so they can channel that energy in a healthy way. Physical activity is a good way to release tension. Ninth is, encourage them to explore different gender roles in play. Let them play with all kinds of toys and participate in all sorts of activities.
It helps them break free from stereotypes and express themselves more fully. And the final takeaway, number 10, is be open about sex. Talk to them about it early and answer their questions honestly using language they can understand.
That helps them build a healthy understanding of sexuality and feel comfortable coming to you with questions. We hope this has given you some good things to think about. Maybe even challenge what you think about parenting.
These renegade rules offer a new way of thinking.
As we finish this part of the discussion, here's a final thought for you.
The book focuses on how the child sees things. But how could these rules affect you, the parent? What would you need to change about your thinking to really embrace these ideas? Let's dig into that impact on parents. The book also talks about how to actually use these renegade rules in real-life situations, especially social settings where you might run into different parenting styles.
It's one thing to think about these ideas at home, but what about when you're out in public
At the playground.
or a play date and other parents are judging you because your kid is banging sticks together or refusing to share?
The book acknowledges that it can be really hard.
And it suggests finding your community,
Connecting with others who have a similar approach.
almost like building a support network.
To share experiences, get ideas, and feel stronger when you're facing criticism.
So you know you're not alone.
Exactly. It's about finding your tribe and standing up for your kids.
Even if they're not doing things the normal way, the book recommends starting small
Practice at home first,
until you feel confident enough to try these rules in public.
like at playgrounds and play dates.
That's okay not to share.
Also gives advice on talking with other parents who might not understand these rules
Encourage open communication,
and explain why you're doing things this way.
even though it might be different. There's a great anecdote in the book about a child who learned to set boundaries during playtime at home,
Uh-huh.
and then when they were at a friend's house,
Okay.
and another child wasn't respecting those boundaries,
Yeah.
they were able to stand up for themselves, showing how these rules can really give kids the skills to advocate for their needs.
Even in new situations, the book also points out that it's important to teach kids that different families might have different rules.
And it's okay.
To each their own.
It helps them see that there isn't just one right way to do things.
And that's an important life skill. Being flexible, adaptable. Speaking of adaptability, the book stresses the importance of physical activity.
Lots of it.
There's a whole chapter about banning chairs.
Young children are naturally active. They need to move,
But we're always telling them to sit still.
especially in those structured learning environments.
And that goes against their developmental needs.
It can make them frustrated,
Restless.
even lead to behavior problems.
The book tells a story about Tyler,
5 years old.
expelled from preschool because he couldn't sit still.
It shows how a child's energy and need to move can be misinterpreted.
Leading to unfair consequences.
Luckily, Tyler went to a different school that was more supportive,
The school for young children.
where they encouraged him to move. He loved their running room,
It was a special room just for running around and playing actively.
showing how vital it is to meet each child's individual needs. There's also an interesting section that looks at the biological differences between boys and girls when it comes to physical activity.
Okay.
Research shows that boys tend to be more active than girls.
Even as young as 2.
The book cites experts who argue that society punishes boys for this,
They get labeled as troublemakers.
just for behaving in ways that are natural for them.
So we need to understand those differences better. The book encourages parents to include movement in everyday routines,
Even things that we normally do sitting down.
like reading,
Maybe let your child move around while you read to them.
or act out the story with them,
The book also suggests doing things that inherently involve movement,
like playing tag,
climbing trees.
or just running around outside.
Movement isn't just good for their bodies. It helps them develop their minds and emotions, too.
It makes their brains work better.
Makes them feel good.
The book also has something to say about that common phrase we use with kids. Be careful.
They argue that it just makes kids anxious.
Without really telling them what to watch out for.
Instead, try saying nothing.
Or giving them specific information about the danger.
Let them make their own choices.
They suggest asking the child, "Do you feel safe?"
That encourages self-awareness.
Helps them learn to be responsible for their own safety.
This means we have to trust our kids
That they can figure things out.
and make good decisions. Okay, let's talk about another tricky topic.
Shoot.
Weapon play.
Toy guns. Swords.
All those pretend weapons.
I know this is a touchy subject for lots of parents,
Especially with all the violence we see in the world.
but the book argues that it's just another form of play,
Like playing pretend.
where kids can explore themes of power, conflict, good versus evil.
They say that playing with toy weapons doesn't actually make kids more violent.
They understand the difference between pretend and real life. They know those toy guns aren't real,
We need to trust them. Let them play.
without putting our own fears onto them.
Now, even though the book supports this kind of play, they don't say we should ignore real gun safety.
We still need to teach kids about the real dangers.
Have those open and honest conversations.
Tell them that real guns can hurt people.
And they should never touch them without an adult.
Give them the facts so they can be safe. The book recognizes that you might have conflicts with other parents about weapon play.
Not everyone agrees.
Be open about your reasons
See if you can find common ground.
while respecting each other's boundaries,
At the end of the day, we're responsible for our own kids.
even if our choices aren't popular. Now, on to another interesting topic.
Gender-bending play.
It's okay not to share wants us to broaden our views of what's appropriate for boys and girls.
The book loves it when kids go against those traditional gender lines.
Like boys playing with dolls,
Or wearing dresses.
or taking care of others,
And girls playing with trucks.
building things.
Getting rough and tumble.
They say these experiences help kids develop a wider range of emotions,
and be more creative.
have better social skills.
All very important for their growth.
They want us to stop limiting kids based on their gender. There's this sweet story about the author's son, Miles. When he was 3, he wanted to wear nail polish,
And it made the author rethink her own ideas about gender.
leading her to be more accepting.
The book highlights how crucial it is to let our kids guide us.
Instead of telling them what they should like,
It's okay not to share, recognizes that some people might disagree with this.
people with more traditional views
They encourage parents to stand strong in their beliefs.
explain your choices.
Show your kids that you accept and include everyone,
Society is always changing.
and we can change those outdated beliefs.
To create a world where everyone feels accepted.
We have to be mindful of the messages we send to our children,
Through our actions.
our words,
Think about the language you use,
the toys you give them.
the activities you encourage.
Make sure you're not accidentally reinforcing stereotypes.
The book also has practical tips for creating a gender-inclusive home.
Offer a variety of toys and activities.
Avoid using language that limits kids.
Challenge traditional roles
All this helps kids explore their own interests and identities freely,
without feeling pressure.
to be a certain way. Now let's move on to a topic that can be really hard to talk about.
Death.
The book recognizes that this makes a lot of adults uncomfortable,
It's natural to want to protect our kids from difficult things.
especially things that scare us too.
But the book argues that death is a part of life.
And kids are curious about it.
They ask big questions about what happens when we die.
If we avoid those conversations
It can actually make them more afraid.
and confused,
It's okay not to share encourages parents to answer their kids' questions about death.
directly,
Honestly,
using language they can understand.
you can explain life cycles
Talk about how plants and insects die.
to show them it's a natural process,
Use the right words,
like dead and die,
not euphemisms.
because kids can understand these things.
When we explain them clearly,
It's important to let kids know that it's okay to feel sad or scared about death.
make them feel safe to talk about their feelings. The book suggests having these conversations early.
Before a child experiences a loss,
It can help them understand death in a healthier way.
and give them tools to cope when they do face grief.
The book also suggests reading books about death with kids.
There are a lot of good children's books out there that handle this topic well,
It can help them process these ideas through stories.
and pictures.
Our own feelings about death will definitely affect how our kids understand it.
So think about your own views.
And try to show your kids that death is a normal part of life.
Not something to be afraid of. We've explored a lot of unconventional parenting ideas from this book.
What do you think about these renegade rules so far?
It really makes you think outside the box.
It encourages us to focus on the child.
As we move to the last part of our discussion,
Let's consider how these rules could change not only our kids.
but also ourselves.
How might this change the way we see things?
Push us beyond our comfort zones.
And ultimately help us grow as parents. Embracing these renegade rules can really change us. As parents, I mean. It can challenge a lot of those deep-seated beliefs we have. And make us question all those societal norms we've accepted without even thinking about it.
It's like we've been blindly following tradition. We need to stop and ask ourselves why we think certain things are right or wrong when it comes to raising kids.
It's okay not to share. Encourages a more mindful way of parenting. We need to really observe our kids, listen to them, and trust their intuition.
It's a move away from being the boss all the time, towards a more collaborative relationship where we empower our kids.
It might mean letting go of some of that control, accepting that we don't have to be perfect, and trusting that our kids can handle challenges and learn from them.
We got to let go of that idea of the perfect parent. Parenting is messy and complicated. We're all just figuring it out as we go. And maybe as we try to help our kids be independent and strong, we end up on a journey of self-discovery too.
It's a two-way street. Our kids change us just as much as we change them. They challenge us to think differently and help us understand people better.
As we wrap up this look at It's Okay Not to Share, remember to stay curious as a parent. Don't be afraid to question what you've always believed, and focus on helping your child grow while you grow right alongside them.
Let's quickly go over those 10 key takeaways again, just to recap.
Number 1, prioritize free play. It helps kids develop so many important skills like creativity, problem solving, and emotional intelligence.
Number 2, set limits instead of banning things completely. If play gets out of hand, redirect it. Show them the boundaries.
Number 3, teach your kids how to resolve conflicts. gives them the tools to communicate and work through disagreements.
Number 4, accept all of their emotions, even the tough ones. Help them learn how to express those feelings in a healthy way.
Number 5, write those feelings down. When your child is upset, let them dictate their feelings to you. It helps them feel heard and understood.
Number 6, turn-taking is a good alternative to forced sharing. Forced sharing can actually make kids less generous. Turn-taking gives them a sense of control and teaches them to be fair.
Number 7, it's okay if they want to play with one toy for a long time. Don't interrupt them just because you think they should be doing something else.
If you do need to stop them, let them know that you understand they want to keep playing. Maybe find a way to let them continue later. Number 8, give them safe ways to express their anger.
Like providing pillows or punching bags for them to hit and kick. It's a good way for them to get that energy out.
Number 9, encourage them to play with toys and do activities that aren't typically associated with their gender. Let them be themselves.
And finally, number 10, talk openly about sex. Answer their questions honestly. Use language they can understand.
This helps them develop healthy attitudes about sex and feel comfortable coming to you with questions.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into it's okay not to share. Maybe it gave you some new things to think about as a parent.
It's all about finding what works best for you and your family.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.